It all started on a quiet street in Des Moines, Iowa. There was nothing extraordinary about the neighborhood, just rows of houses with neatly trimmed lawns and kids playing outside after school. But one kid stood out. Her name was Caitlin Clark, and even as a little girl, she had something special. You could see it every time she stepped onto the driveway court with her older brother. They'd play for hours, shooting hoops until the sun dipped below the horizon and their parents called them inside. Basketball wasn't just a game for Caitlin. It was her passion. She didn't care if she was smaller or younger than most of the other kids. When she held that ball in her hands, she felt unstoppable. And she wasn't wrong. By the time she hit middle school, people were already talking about her. Word spread quickly around town. This girl had skills that couldn't be ignored. Her talent wasn't just about making baskets. Sure, she could sink shots from half court like it was nothing, but what really set her apart was how she thought about the game. Even at a young age, Caitlin understood things most players took years to figure out. She saw passes others missed, read defenses instinctively, and always seemed to know exactly where her teammates needed to be. It was like basketball came naturally, to her, almost as if it were written into her DNA. High school changed everything. Caitlin joined the Dowling Catholic team, and suddenly, she wasn't just playing against neighborhood kids anymore. This was serious business. Every game mattered and everyone wanted to beat her. But instead of shrinking under the pressure, Caitlin thrived. She led her team to back-to-back state championships, setting records along the way. Fans packed the gymnasiums to watch her play, not because they knew she'd win, though she usually did, but because there was something electric about the way she moved on the court. Watching Caitlin play was like watching poetry in motion. By the time she graduated high school, Caitlin's name was everywhere. College recruiters couldn't get enough of her. Offers poured in from some of the biggest universities in the country, each one promising scholarships, top-tier coaching, and a chance to shine on a national stage. But Caitlin stayed true to herself. Instead of choosing a flashy program far away, she decided to stay close to home and commit to the University of Iowa. For her, it wasn't just about picking a school. It was about finding a place where she could grow, both as a player and as a person. And grow she did. Once Caitlin stepped onto the college court, there was no stopping her. She broke records left and right, becoming one of the highest scorers in NCAA history. But numbers only tell part of the story. What made Caitlin truly unforgettable was the way she played, with heart, grit, and an unshakable belief in herself. Whether she was sinking three-pointers from impossible distances or dishing out assists that left defenders spinning in circles, Caitlin played with a fire that inspired everyone who watched her. As her fame grew, so did the questions swirling around her future. Would she go pro? If so, would she stay in the United States, where women's basketball still faced challenges, or would she chase bigger opportunities overseas? These weren't easy questions, and Caitlin knew her decision would have ripple effects far beyond her own career. Still, she kept her focus on the present, pouring every ounce of energy into her games and letting the rest unfold when the time came. Little did anyone know, Caitlin's journey was just beginning. The world might have been buzzing about her potential, but she was too busy proving herself on the court to pay much attention. One thing was certain: whatever path Caitlin chose, it wouldn't be ordinary. After all, she'd never been one to follow the crowd. And that's exactly why millions of eyes were glued to her next move, not just because of what it meant for her, but because of what it could mean for the future of women's basketball. Caitlin's college career was like a rocket launch, fast, powerful, and impossible to ignore. By the time she finished her senior year, she wasn't just a standout player anymore. She was a global sensation. Her name echoed in sports circles, from small-town gyms in Iowa to international arenas halfway across the world. But with fame came choices, and those choices weren't going to be easy. The moment Caitlin declared for the WNBA draft, the offers started flooding in. It wasn't just teams from the US that were interested. International clubs came calling too. Countries like Turkey, China, and Australia had long been known for offering massive salaries to top-tier athletes. In these leagues, players could earn millions of dollars per season, live in luxurious apartments, and travel on private jets. For many basketball stars, especially women, playing overseas wasn't just an option. It was often the best way to secure financial stability and build a legacy. Caitlin's agent worked tirelessly behind the scenes, fielding calls and reviewing contracts that seemed almost too good to be true. Some offers promised not only high paychecks but also perks most professional athletes could only dream of. Imagine living in a penthouse overlooking Istanbul's bustling streets or waking up to the serene beaches of Sydney. These opportunities sounded glamorous, and for anyone else they might have been irresistible. But Caitlin wasn't anyone else. She carried something deeper within her, a sense of responsibility. Growing up in Iowa, she'd seen firsthand how much young fans looked up to athletes. Kids would show up at her games wearing jerseys with her number on them, their eyes wide with admiration. Caitlin knew she represented more than herself. Staying in the U.S. meant continuing to inspire those kids, showing them they didn't need to leave home to succeed. Leaving for greener pastures abroad might bring personal rewards, but it would also send a message that the U.S. couldn't compete when it came to valuing female athletes. Still, the decision weighed heavily on her. The WNBA, while growing rapidly, still lagged behind international leagues in terms of pay. Players in the WNBA often juggled multiple jobs during the off-season just to make ends meet. Even the biggest stars earned fractions of what their male counterparts made in the NBA. Caitlin understood the challenges all too well. She'd seen teammates struggle financially despite giving everything they had on the court. Why should she settle for less when she could thrive somewhere else? While Caitlin stayed focused on training, the media buzzed with speculation. Sports analysts debated endlessly. Would she stay or go? Social media lit up with hashtags like "Kaishern keep her home" and "Caitlin Foressay" as fans expressed their hopes and fears. Some argued that Caitlin owed it to her country to stay and help elevate women's basketball. Others believed she deserved to chase the best deal possible, regardless of where it took her. Everyone had an opinion, but no one knew what Caitlin truly wanted, not even her closest friends. Behind closed doors, negotiations intensified. The WNBA and its sponsors realized they were facing a pivotal moment. If Caitlin left, it wouldn't just be a loss for the league. It would be a blow to the entire movement for gender equality in sports. Losing someone of her caliber would signal that the U.S. couldn't hold on to its brightest stars. Determined to keep her, the WNBA began exploring creative solutions. They reached out to major brands like Nike, Gatorade, and ESPN, proposing partnerships that could boost player salaries and create new revenue streams. The goal was clear: show Caitlin and future generations that staying in the U.S. wasn't just about patriotism, it was about opportunity. As weeks turned into months, Caitlin remained calm and composed. She didn't let the pressure get to her. Instead, she poured her energy into preparing for whatever lay ahead. Whether she ended up playing in the WNBA or flying overseas, Caitlin was determined to give her best. Her family supported her completely, reminding her that the decision was hers alone. "Whatever makes you happy," her mom told her one evening, over dinner. That's what matters most. Meanwhile, fans waited anxiously for news. Every interview Caitlin gave was dissected for clues. Reporters asked her directly, "What will you do? Where will you go?" But Caitlin kept her cards close to her chest. "I'm taking my time," she said in one press conference. "This is a big decision, and I want to make sure I get it right." It wasn't just about money, though. Caitlin thought about the bigger picture. Playing overseas might mean a hefty paycheck, but it also meant leaving behind the community she loved. The U.S. was her home, the place where she'd grown up, honed her skills, and built her dreams. Could she walk away from that? On the other hand, staying meant fighting for change, pushing boundaries, and proving that women's basketball in America could rise to new heights. It was a daunting challenge, but Caitlin had never backed down from a challenge before. In the end, it all boiled down to one question: what kind of legacy did Caitlin want to leave behind? Did she want to be remembered as the superstar who chased wealth abroad, or as the trailblazer who helped transform women's sports in her own backyard? No matter what she chose, one thing was certain: Caitlin Clark's decision would shape the future, not just for herself, but for countless others who dared to dream big. The pressure was mounting, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Caitlin Clark found herself at a crossroads, not just in her career, but in the history of women's basketball. Every decision she made carried weight, not only for her own future, but for the future of the sport itself. It wasn't just about signing a contract anymore. It was about sending a message to the world. As negotiations dragged on, something remarkable began to happen. The WNBA, along with its sponsors, realized they weren't just fighting to keep one player. They were fighting to redefine what was possible for women in sports. This wasn't just Caitlin's moment, it was a chance to prove that female athletes could be valued as much as their male counterparts. And so, the league didn't hold back. They went all in. In an unprecedented move, the WNBA announced a groundbreaking partnership with some of the biggest brands in the world: Nike, Gatorade, ESPN, and others. Together, they created a special fund aimed at boosting player salaries, improving facilities, and increasing visibility for the league. It was clear this initiative had been inspired by Caitlin's looming decision. Losing her would mean losing more than just a star player. It would mean losing momentum, credibility, and hope. Everyone involved knew they had to step up. For Caitlin, this shift felt personal. She'd always believed in the power of women's basketball, but seeing the league rally behind her gave her chills. It showed her that people were finally listening, not just to her, but to the voices of countless athletes who had fought for years to be seen and heard. The idea of staying in the U.S. suddenly felt less like settling and more like seizing an opportunity to lead. Negotiations between Caitlin's team and the WNBA stretched for months. There were late-night calls, tense meetings, and endless revisions of contracts. Both sides wanted to get it right. For Caitlin, it wasn't just about numbers. It was about respect. She wanted to ensure that her deal wouldn't just benefit her, but would also pave the way for others. She pushed hard for guarantees that the money wouldn't stop with her. Endorsement deals, marketing campaigns, and community programs, all of it had to reflect a commitment to lifting up the entire league. Finally, after what felt like forever, the agreement was reached. When the news broke, it sent shockwaves through the sports world. Caitlin Clark had signed a $100 million contract over 10 years. That number wasn't just impressive, it was revolutionary. It shattered records and set a new standard for what female athletes could achieve in the U.S. But the deal wasn't just about the paycheck. It included base salary, performance bonuses, and lucrative endorsement opportunities. More importantly, it symbolized a seismic shift in how women's sports were perceived and valued. When asked about her decision to stay, Caitlin spoke with a mix of pride and determination. "This isn't just about me," she said during a press conference. "It's about showing young girls everywhere that they can dream big and chase those dreams right here at home. I want them to know that their worth isn't defined by where they go. It's defined by how hard they work and how much they believe in themselves." The announcement sparked celebrations across the country. Fans flooded social media with messages of support, calling Caitlin a trailblazer and a hero. Young athletes posted videos of themselves shooting hoops, saying they wanted to be like her when they grew up. Parents thanked her for giving their kids a reason to believe in the power of women's sports. Even critics who once doubted the viability of women's basketball in the U.S. had to admit they were witnessing something extraordinary. But Caitlin didn't let the hype go to her head. If anything, she felt even more driven. She knew the real work was just beginning. Signing the contract was one thing, living up to it was another. She spent hours in the gym perfecting her game, studying film and working with coaches to elevate her skills. She also started thinking about ways to use her platform to create lasting change. From speaking out about equal pay to advocating for better resources for youth sports, Caitlin made it clear she wasn't content to simply play the game. She wanted to transform it. Her first official game under the new contract drew massive crowds. Fans packed arenas, wearing jerseys with her name emblazoned across the back. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled notes, and commentators buzzed with excitement. But for Caitlin, none of that mattered once she stepped onto the court. The noise faded away, replaced by the familiar rhythm of sneakers squeaking against hardwood and the sound of the ball bouncing in her hands. This was her element, her sanctuary. From the opening tip-off, Caitlin played with the same fire and focus that had defined her career from day one. She sank three-pointers, dished out assists, and hustled for every rebound. But it wasn't just her stats that captivated the audience. It was the way she carried herself. She played with joy, intensity, and an unshakable belief that she belonged exactly where she was. Watching her perform, it was impossible not to feel inspired. After the game, Caitlin took a moment to reflect on everything that had led her to this point. She thought about the driveway court in Des Moines where it all began, the sacrifices her family had made, and the countless hours she'd spent honing her craft. She thought about the young fans who looked up to her and the responsibility she now carried to represent them well. And she thought about the future, not just her own, but the future of women's basketball as a whole. "This is just the beginning," she told reporters after the game. "I didn't sign this contract to sit back and relax. I signed it because I believe in what we can build together. We've got a long way to go, but if we keep pushing, keep fighting, we can change the game forever." And that's exactly what Caitlin set out to do. With her historic deal secured, she wasn't just focused on winning championships or breaking records. She was focused on building a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Whether it was through her performances on the court, her advocacy off it, or simply the example she set as a leader, Caitlin was determined to leave the sport better than she found it. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be challenges, doubts, and obstacles to overcome. But Caitlin had never been one to shy away from a challenge. If anything, she thrived under pressure. And now, with the eyes of the world watching, she was ready to show everyone what was truly possible when talent, determination, and heart came together. Caitlin's first season under her groundbreaking $100 million contract wasn't just another chapter in her career. It was a turning point for women's basketball. From the moment she stepped onto the court, it was clear that this wasn't going to be business as usual. The energy was electric. Fans filled arenas across the country, many of them wearing jerseys with her name on the back. Kids held up handmade signs, cheering loudly every time she touched the ball. It wasn't just about watching a game anymore. It was about being part of something bigger. Every game felt like an event, and Caitlin played like she knew it. She brought her signature intensity, sinking shots from impossible distances and threading passes that left defenders scrambling. But what really stood out was how she carried herself. She didn't just play to win, she played to inspire. Whether she was diving for loose balls or celebrating a teammate's big play, Caitlin made sure everyone around her felt included. Her leadership wasn't loud or flashy. It was steady and genuine, the kind that earned respect without needing to demand it. The numbers spoke for themselves. Attendance records were shattered week after week. TV ratings soared, drawing in viewers who had never paid much attention to women's basketball before. Social media feeds were flooded with highlights of Caitlin's performances, along with comments from fans saying things like, "I've never watched the WNBA before, but now I'm hooked." Sponsors took notice too. Brands that had once hesitated to invest heavily in women's sports were lining up to partner with the league. Suddenly, billboards, commercials, and magazine covers featured Caitlin alongside other WNBA stars, showcasing their talent and determination. But Caitlin's impact went far beyond stats and endorsements. She became a role model in ways she hadn't fully anticipated. After games, she'd often stay late signing autographs and taking pictures with young fans. Parents would tell her how much their daughters admired her, how they practiced dribbling and shooting because they wanted to be just like her someday. Caitlin listened to these stories with a mix of pride and humility. She remembered what it was like to look up to athletes when she was younger, and she understood the weight of being someone's hero. Off the court, Caitlin used her platform to speak out about issues close to her heart. Equal pay was one of them. Despite her record-breaking deal, she knew there was still work to be done. Many of her teammates and fellow players in the league weren't earning nearly as much, and Caitlin refused to forget about them. In interviews, she openly discussed the need for continued investment in women's sports. "This isn't just about me," she'd say. "It's about making sure every player has the resources and opportunities they deserve." She also focused on giving back to the community. Caitlin partnered with local organizations to create youth basketball programs, especially in underserved areas. These initiatives weren't just about teaching kids how to play. They were about showing them that they mattered, that their dreams were worth pursuing no matter where they came from. Caitlin visited schools, spoke at events, and even hosted clinics where kids could learn directly from her. Watching her interact with the children, you could see how much it meant to her. She wasn't just ticking boxes or doing PR stunts. She genuinely cared. As the season progressed, Caitlin's influence began to reshape the entire landscape of women's basketball. Teams saw increased support from their cities, with local businesses sponsoring games and hosting fan events. Young girls started dreaming bigger, imagining themselves not just playing professionally but thriving in a system that valued their contributions. Coaches and scouts noticed a shift too. More talented players were emerging, inspired by Caitlin's example and eager to follow in her footsteps. Of course, none of this happened overnight. There were challenges along the way. Some critics argued that Caitlin's success was an anomaly, that it couldn't be replicated for other players. Others accused her of overshadowing her teammates, claiming too much attention was being placed on her individual achievements rather than the team's collective efforts. Caitlin heard the criticism, but she didn't let it shake her focus. Instead, she worked even harder to highlight her teammates' talents, emphasizing that basketball was a team sport, through and through. One particularly memorable moment came during a crucial playoff game. With seconds left on the clock and her team trailing by 2 points, Caitlin had the ball. Everyone in the arena expected her to take the final shot. It was her trademark move, after all. But instead, she drove into the lane, drew the defense, and dished a perfect pass to a wide-open teammate, who sank the buzzer-beating three-pointer to win the game. As her teammate celebrated, Caitlin ran over to hug her, grinning ear to ear. It was a small gesture, but it said everything about who she was as a player and a person: selfless, supportive, and always willing to share the spotlight. By the end of the season, Caitlin's presence had transformed the league in ways no one could have predicted. Attendance and revenue were at all-time highs, and conversations about gender equality in sports had gained new momentum. More importantly, young athletes everywhere felt empowered to chase their dreams, knowing that someone like Caitlin had paved the way for them. When asked about her goals moving forward, Caitlin kept it simple. "I want to keep growing," she said. "Not just as a player, but as a person. I want to keep pushing boundaries, breaking barriers, and showing people that anything is possible if you believe in yourself and work hard enough." Her words resonated deeply, not just with fans, but with anyone who had ever dared to dream. Caitlin Clark wasn't just changing the game of basketball, she was changing lives. And as the final buzzer sounded on her historic first season, it was clear that this was only the beginning of her journey. Years passed, and Caitlin Clark's impact on women's basketball and sports as a whole only grew stronger. Her journey wasn't just about breaking records or signing historic contracts. It was about leaving behind a legacy that would last, long after her playing days were over. And as time went on, it became clear that Caitlin had done exactly that. By the end of her career, Caitlin had piled up accolades, championships, MVP awards, scoring titles, and countless other honors. But when people talked about her, they didn't focus solely on the trophies or statistics. Instead, they spoke about the way she carried herself, with humility, grace, and an unshakable belief in what was possible. They talked about how she inspired young fans to dream bigger and work harder. They remembered the moments when she used her platform not for personal gain, but for the greater good. Caitlin's decision to stay in the U.S. turned out to be more than just a career move. It sparked a revolution. The WNBA flourished under her influence, drawing record-breaking crowds and viewership numbers year after year. More importantly, salaries across the league began to rise, thanks in part to the partnerships and investments Caitlin's deal had helped inspire. Players who once struggled to make ends meet now found themselves earning livable wages, allowing them to focus entirely on their craft. For many athletes, this shift meant everything. It gave them stability, dignity, and the ability to pursue their passions without compromise. But Caitlin's reach extended far beyond professional basketball. Youth programs sprang up in cities and towns across the country, fueled by her advocacy and example. Kids who might never have picked up a basketball before were now dribbling, shooting, and dreaming of greatness. Coaches reported seeing a surge in participation, especially among girls who finally had someone to look up to, a role model who showed them they could succeed in a world that often underestimated them. Even outside the sport, Caitlin's story resonated deeply. She became a symbol of perseverance and progress, proof that one person's determination could spark widespread change. Her name appeared in conversations about gender equality, education, and community development. Schools invited her to speak at graduations, where she encouraged students to chase their dreams no matter how impossible they seemed. Corporations sought her out for campaigns promoting leadership and resilience. In every area of life, Caitlin's message remained consistent. Believe in yourself, work hard, and don't let anyone tell you your dreams are too big. As retirement approached, Caitlin took stock of her journey. She thought about the little girl in Des Moines who had spent hours practicing on her driveway court, dreaming of making it to the pros. She thought about the college games that had tested her limits and pushed her to grow. She thought about the tough decisions she'd faced and the sacrifices she'd made along the way. Looking back, she realized something profound. None of it had been easy, but every challenge had been worth it. Each step, every victory and setback, had shaped her into the person she was today. In her final season, Caitlin decided to give back in a new way. She launched a foundation aimed at supporting young athletes, particularly those from underserved communities. The foundation provided scholarships, equipment, and mentorship programs designed to help kids overcome obstacles and achieve their goals. Caitlin poured her heart into the project, traveling to different cities to meet with families and share her story. "I want these kids to know they're not alone," she said during one visit. "Someone out there believes in them, even if it doesn't feel like it right now." When Caitlin officially retired, the outpouring of love and gratitude was overwhelming. Fans gathered outside arenas holding signs that read, "Thank you, Caitlin," and "Forever our hero." Former teammates and opponents alike praised her, not just for her skill, but for her character. Even rival teams honored her contributions to the game, recognizing that her success had lifted everyone around her. In interviews reflecting on her career, Caitlin often brought the conversation back to others. "This isn't just my story," she'd say. "It belongs to everyone who believed in me, supported me, and fought alongside me. Without them, none of this would have been possible." She credited her family, her coaches, her teammates, and, most importantly, the fans who had cheered her on through thick and thin. Looking ahead, Caitlin refused to slow down. Retirement didn't mean stepping away from the game. It meant finding new ways to contribute. She transitioned into broadcasting, offering insightful commentary during games, and using her platform to continue advocating for women's sports. She also wrote a memoir, sharing the highs and lows of her journey in hopes of inspiring others to persevere through their own challenges. The book became a bestseller, resonating with readers of all ages and backgrounds. Perhaps Caitlin's greatest legacy, though, was the cultural shift she helped ignite. Thanks to her efforts, and those of countless others, the perception of women's sports in America fundamentally changed. No longer were female athletes seen as secondary or less valuable. They were celebrated, respected, and recognized for their incredible talents. Young girls growing up in Caitlin's wake didn't question whether they belonged on the court. They knew they did. They saw themselves reflected in the players they admired, and they understood that their potential was limitless. On the day Caitlin's jersey was officially retired by her team, thousands of fans packed the arena to celebrate her achievements. As her number ascended to the rafters, accompanied by thunderous applause, Caitlin stood at center court, tears welling in her eyes. She scanned the crowd, taking in the sea of faces, young and old, male and female, united by their shared admiration. For her, it was a moment she'd cherish forever. "I never set out to change the world," Caitlin said during her speech that night. I just wanted to play the game I loved and do my best. But somewhere along the way, I realized that we all have the power to make a difference, not just in our own lives, but in the lives of others. If my journey has taught me anything, it's that we're stronger together. We build each other up, we lift each other higher, and we create opportunities where none existed before. Her words echoed throughout the arena, touching hearts and sparking hope. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a basketball player anymore. She was a beacon of possibility, a reminder that dreams can come true if you dare to chase them. Her story served as a testament to the power of perseverance, passion, and purpose. And while her time on the court may have ended, her influence would continue to ripple through generations to come. For Caitlin, the real victory wasn't in the points scored or the records broken. It was in the lives she touched and the barriers she helped dismantle. She proved that staying true to yourself and fighting for what you believe in can lead to extraordinary outcomes. And as fans left the arena that night buzzing with excitement and inspiration, they carried with them a simple yet powerful truth. One person really can change the game.